elections, votes, insanity. What is going on? And Oregon says that all drugs are now legal. All of them. Small amount, but legal. Just randomness. Let's just mediate.
A very sad group of people is trying to disenfranchise that group of people, and we won't stand for it. So we'll be going to the U.S. Supreme Court. We want all voting to stop. We don't want them to find any ballots at 4 o'clock in the morning and add them to the list, okay? We will win this, and as far as I'm concerned, we already have won it.
Philadelphia, unfortunately, and I would say this about my own city, has a reputation for voter fraud. You have a reputation for dead people voting.
Guys, this is fraud. This is absolute fraud. We've seen it in Philadelphia before. They're trying to make a mockery of the election of this country. My father is up by almost 500,000 votes in this state, with 86% reported, and plenty of red counties left to go. But they're trying to cheat us out of it because they know it's their only path to victory.
So then we have Eric Trump, right? And so he's saying that there's definitely fraud there, that Philadelphia is known for fraud. Don't know. They've had dead people apparently there try to vote before, and apparently it's still happening. I'm not sure. A lot of interesting stuff going on. What do you think? I don't know. My opinion, okay, Biden wins, so be it. He won. If it's fair and square, so be it. But there's a lot of discrepancies coming up. Now, could be just people just making stuff up. Could be conspiracy. Could be anything. But there are a lot of discrepancies coming up, and we're going to cover some of those. So if there's discrepancies, they need to be looked at. If he won fair and square, then it's fine. There's no issue there. So let's look a little more.
As they're coming out, we try to go in and they say, sorry, we're at capacity, which if anybody knows, you click a 5 out, 5 can go in. They're not letting us, and more than enough people have come out since this morning, and they're still claiming at capacity.
People have left over the morning shift, the overnight shift, and now today they're at capacity according to their numbers, but they haven't been tracking people signing out. Meanwhile, they're letting Dems in by the droves, and nobody is watching that number.
Our job here is to do nothing but make sure the name that's on the ballot is the name that's on the poll book. That's all we're here for, and we're being blocked from doing our function.
So we have a group that's out there watching the count, and so when they're watching the count, they have some independents, some people who have no affiliation, they have Democrats, they have several people out there, and they're watching. So these people are out there, and they're watching the ballots, making sure that everything's counted correctly and appropriately. And according to these guys, they're not being let in. So this is one instance of this discussion about all the fraud that is going on. Let's just see what's happening.
So 8 p.m. Election Day, November 3rd, the Court of Appeals ruled ballots have to be received by that time. And what were you told?
To separate them today so they could mark them with yesterday's date and send them through the express system to wherever they needed to go.
This appears to be an attempt to circumvent Michigan law and allow late votes. And you said there was a hamper where letter carriers were supposed to leave their ballots. Where are the ballots now?
They were putting them into express bags to go to the distribution center. In regards to a hamper, there was a standard hamper that all letter mail is supposed to go to, and they had a tub next to it that we were supposed to put any ballots collected today into.
Now, there are several claims, right? So here's one. So there's a post office worker who said, that there was fraud happening there. There was a whole bin full of votes, and the timing and everything's off. So there's a lot of stuff happening that people are questioning. And again, if that is the case, if there is potential fraud, it should be looked at. Biden shouldn't worry about it because he's going to come on top. He's already coming out on top. Why worry about it? But if there's not, it doesn't really matter ultimately. It could just be a moot point, and Trump is going to waste a ton of money trying to fight it. So anyway, let's keep going. So there was an article in Mike Cowdery, and apparently he came out with this. And there's a whistleblower who came out and said that there were a barrel of ballots coming in at 3:45 a.m. and that there's just a ton of discrepancy, right? And so there's several fact checkers that said this is not true, so on and so forth. But the only evidence they're coming up with is, for example, here we have Reuters, and Associated Press pretty much just said, reported that the pandemic caused over 1.9 million voters to participate in mail-in or in-person voting before Election Day. which resulted in significantly higher early voter turnout compared to previous elections. So that's pretty much just what they're saying. Because of COVID, we had a change, and therefore people voted differently, and therefore the turnout was different. That doesn't explain the discrepancies, right? There's people reporting wagons full of ballots and all these things that are coming in late and coming in for various things. They're also saying that that is not accurate, not true, fact checking it. There was a Channel 7 article news that came out where they said this was our wagon. We were bringing in some batteries. And so again, if that's the case, so be it. But there's a lot of stuff going on. There are windows being boarded up so people can't look inside. There are people who can't get in to verify votes. There's just, it doesn't make sense. Let's continue. We're going to find a few more things that just don't make sense. It's really interesting what's going on right now. So here we have a report by Fox News, and they're saying that North Carolina election results could take another week to be finalized. Okay, so North Carolina is saying we're going to pause, we're going to break. Why? It says around 40,000 provisional ballots and 116,000 mail-in ballots must still be processed. Okay, that's great, but in the past, going to go by just traditional methods, right? We count ballots, and those ballots are counted quickly, and typically by election night, we kind of know what's happened. Yes, it's different. Yes, we have mail-in ballots that we don't typically have. Yes, we have a surge in that, but at the same time, many of those were sent in very early on. I'm not saying there is fraud. All I'm saying is there's a lot of things in question. Why the heck would North Carolina stop counting votes for a week and say we're going to come back? My guess, and again, just me thinking, I got to have a reason, right? So why would they do this? Well, the only thing I can think of is they're waiting for more to come in, and we may see those numbers change. Here they're giving us some numbers. This is around 40,000 provisional ballots and 116,000 mail-in ballots must still be processed. Why not just process them? My guess is you're waiting for more to come in. The interesting thing is that it looks like Pennsylvania is doing the same thing. So the Hill's reporting, Pennsylvania allegedly pauses ballot counting until Friday. Why?
Vote counting has been paused until Friday in a blue district of Pennsylvania that encompasses Pittsburgh after a federal court ordered about 29,000 ballots be set aside until after the state's deadline to receive mail ballots for the 2020 election. Allegheny County Board of Elections Chairman Rich Fitzgerald said that 29,000 ballots would not be handled or processed until after 5 p.m. EST on Friday, the deadline for ballots postmarked on November 3rd to be received and counted in the presidential election. The ballots in question stem from an incident in which vendors sent ballots with wrong information to thousands of people. The ballots had to be reissued, and the court has ordered the returned ballots to be set aside until after the deadline to give them closer scrutiny and to ensure that there are no duplicates.
So according to that video, so they want to make sure there's no duplicates. They want to, verify things. That's great. I can respect that. That's fine. But why are you going to pause? Why are you going to stop? Why not continue now with the count that you have? Finish that. And then as they come in, you continue with those. Why stop? It doesn't make sense. Unless, again, you're waiting for more to come in. But where are they going to come from? Yes, they may have been sent in November 3rd. And now we're looking at November 6th, which is that whole deal that they had with Pennsylvania, allowing an extra 3 days for results to come in. It's insanity everywhere. What do we do about this? Well, let's see. So Trump campaign ballot counting lawsuits. What do we know? So he's got several suits going on in several states, right? I think it's Nevada. He's got one in Wisconsin, another one in Pennsylvania. So essentially, he's trying to put a pause to all this craziness while things get figured out, right? And again, if there's fraud, stop it. If there's not, verify it. So be it. Again, worst case scenario is Trump just spends a ton of money doing all this, and then it's done. Worst case scenario for Biden is he actually didn't win. So again, what do we want? We want accurate results. So I say, take this all the way through, figure it out. It's such a close race. There's so much misinformation. It was evident that the polls were completely off, completely wrong. Perhaps a couple here and there weren't, but for the most part, they were off. Whether you're looking at the House, you're looking at the Senate, all of it was off completely. And we're seeing results much different than what was out there. I did an episode on the manipulation of these polls, and that's exactly what we saw. It was manipulation to sway something one direction or another. Got to think for ourselves, man. Anyway, let's continue. So there you go. So there's several scenarios going on, several things going on. What do you guys think? Should we just stop and just say, hey, we go with what we have? Should we continue counting? Should we just go with the lawsuits? What do we do in this situation? I always like to be fair as possible, right? And if there seems to be something incorrect, we need to verify that. So I say, take it all the way. Let's see what happens. Worst case, we have a winner, we have a loser. Either way, we're going to have that. So let's just see where it goes. So next story here, this one's from about a week ago, but I just thought it was important to kind of move into our next story here. So Antifa plans wave of demonstrations on streets as U.S. election polls close. Now, this is right before the election closed, and they were planning a bunch of demonstrations, which we saw some, not too many, not what we expected. But the reason I wanted to touch on this again was ultimately, it says here, protesters supporting Black Lives Matter and Antifa movements are organizing protests beginning on Tuesday night. On Twitter posts depicting a police car and brick alongside the phrase ballot box. And so ultimately what we're finding is that they were coming out saying, we're going to protest no matter what. We're going to riot no matter what. Didn't say riot, but so because it doesn't matter who wins, right? It says alongside the post is a mock-up of a poster showing a time of 7 p.m. with a burning ballot box and a call to revolutionaries, anarchists, and fascists. And that's what we're finding. So let's look at this next article, because the point to this, again, they just want revolution. They want to destroy what we have. They want to just start over and get rid of this. So here we have Governor Brown. This is Fox 12 Oregon. Governor Brown says Portland rioters have no discernible goal other than to cause violence and vandalism. Now, why would she say this? My guess is because right now we still don't have a set president. No one actually came out and was a victor. And even if you did look at what's happening right now, it looks like Biden is on top. These people were protesting during Trump's rule, during Trump's administration. And now we're looking at a possible change of administration, and they continue to cause havoc, wreak havoc, destroy, and riot. And so ultimately, it's what we've been saying, and what they should have been doing, and what this governor finally did. They actually called in the National Guard. Why didn't you do this 6 months ago? This has been going on in Oregon for months. And now, because it looks like, okay, we're past the political issue, right? We're past the election. Now, okay, let's actually do something about it. This is ridiculous, guys. They're not taking care of you. This is pointless. These people who are rioting have no purpose. They want to just destroy. Actually, I take that back. Their purpose is to completely just bring an anarchist government. That's what they would love. That's what we saw in Chaz and CHOP. That's what we saw in all these places. This is ridiculous. So I'm glad she's calling in for the support of the National Guard, but at the same time, you should have been doing this the entire time. All these people's businesses, all this destruction that happened, you should have just cut that short quickly. And so from Discern, just a little more information there. It says National Guard response to rioting in Portland, about 50 protesters arrested in New York City. And so, like I said, there were a few places where it did happen. We had Portland, we had New York, a couple other places where they had some rioting, but with really little to no purpose. What are we protesting now? Are we protesting, Donald Trump? Are we protesting anti-fascist movement? Are we protesting the Black Lives Matter movement? Are we what are we protesting here? Is it still George Floyd? These guys have no direction here at this point. It's really interesting what's happening. Don't give in. This is horrible. Destroy, burn, and that's about it. It needs to stop.
Welcome back. Oregon is now the first state to decriminalize small amounts of hard drugs. We're talking things like heroin, cocaine, and meth. Now, if you're caught with the drug, a person would have the option of paying a $100 fine or attending new addiction recovery centers. Opponents of the measures say it promotes drug use and will lead to more overdoses and overwhelm addiction centers in the state.
So there you guys have it. So Oregon just passed a bill, right? Just passed a proposition that essentially decriminalizes all drugs, all hard drugs. You can have cocaine, heroin, psychedelics. It doesn't matter. As long as it's a certain amount. I didn't check the exact amount, but I'm assuming it's something like 6 ounces, kind of like you have with marijuana. You can have whatever you want. You can use, it doesn't matter. And this is to go against the war on drugs. I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of that, whether you look at it from a biblical perspective, from a just social perspective, from any perspective you look at it from. I don't want my kids growing up thinking that drugs are okay because the government said so. That's just my opinion. But again, I don't think it's best for society that people can have whatever drug whenever you want and that you can just run around crazy or run around and drive a car under the influence of whether it's a drug, alcohol, it doesn't matter. I'm not a fan at all, but this is the way our country's going. If you look at other states, a few of them have passed also psychedelics as well. This is the movement going forward. Not good at all. So here's an article from Reuters back in 2019, August of 2019, so almost a year ago. And it says, heady days of Amsterdam's drug culture turn bad as hard stuff brings violence and corruption. Ultimately, they experimented with this, right? And we kept on saying, okay, well, look at Amsterdam. They've legalized drugs. They've done this, and it seems fine. Not saying that so much anymore. It looks like it's starting to bring violence and corruption. So it says Amsterdam has given free rein to a motley crew of drug criminals, a ring of hustlers and parasites, middlemen and extortionists, dubious notaries and real estate agents, report said. At the top of the criminal chain are wealthy organized crime bosses who may not be physically located in Amsterdam, the report says. At the bottom are criminal lackeys such as scooter and taxi chauffeurs and even youthful messenger boys. So ultimately, you have this group from the outside who essentially are the drug dealers bringing in these drugs here, making money, and bringing in corruption. It says recent studies found that 21% of Amsterdam's population has used marijuana in the past year, and 17% had used hard drugs such as cocaine and ecstasy, it said. Health authorities estimate up to 70% of people attending dance festivals may use ecstasy, it said. So, like I said earlier, I don't want my kids growing up thinking this is okay, because 70% of people in Amsterdam, according to this, may have used ecstasy. 17% hard drugs. 21% of Amsterdam's population use marijuana. So the numbers are climbing here, and those are huge percentages, whether it's 70, even 21. It's almost a quarter of the population has used marijuana at least. 17% use hard drugs. Many say it's not a gateway drug. I still disagree, because most of those people who say it's not a gateway drug do or have done other drugs. It just, how can you make that argument? If you're occasionally on your, occasional mushroom or your occasional, sniff of cocaine or crack, whatever you do, how can you make that argument? Perhaps you're not stuck on those drugs, but the fact that you were open to do this one and then you've done those, I would disagree. I don't think that's the case. Does it mean that anybody who's done marijuana does other things? No, I'm not saying that. Some people who actually do okay, just as like there are people who do okay having a beer or two. Some people become addicted to it. It's the same thing. So my issue here is we're not supposed to be using these drugs. They do cause people to do insane things. If you look at it from that direction or a spiritual sense, right? These don't help you in that sense. Some use them for spiritual experiences, but what exactly is that? We can talk about that if you hit our channel over on One Mediator Cross Analysis, and we can go into that a little deeper, because again, there is a physical aspect in terms of the destruction that it brings, but also the spiritual aspect in terms of how it destroys you, and also how it was not God's intention for us to have these things. And that's what we have. And that's our show for today. Thank you guys for stopping by. Glad you guys went out and voted. Glad you saw that. It's unfortunate what's happening now, but let's look for truth. We're always looking for truth. If there's discrepancy, let's look into it. If there's not, who cares? It's going to come out. Let's just look into it, get the truth, and hopefully it all pans out. Stay safe, stay focused, and thank you guys. Check out our other channel as usual, One Mediator Cross Analysis, where we talk about some of these stories, but through a biblical lens. Always, thank you guys. Share, subscribe, like. I'm going to say it again. Share, subscribe, like. If you haven't done it, do it. If you haven't done it, do it. If you're going to do it now. Either way, thank you guys, and have a great night. God bless.